Okay, everybody, welcome. Today we are going to do another Photoshop tutorial because I think people that are interested in doing art for a career or moving forward in their creative endeavors, it's important to know this program and just the gist of how digital programs work and the framework upon which they're built, and it's kind of a universal thing. So it's not just Photoshop; it's GIMP, it's Illustrator, Affinity, Procreate, any of these programs. So today, to help you guys learn, I am going to take a drawing that I did a long time ago, and I'm gonna take you through step by step how to take a pen and ink drawing in real life on paper and put it into the computer to finish it. So I have this drawing I did probably in 2013, no, that's a lie. This was probably done in 2015 or 2016. Um, just a couple hands, a hand study. This was, I think, for my foundation course or something like that. But anyway, there's a lot of different things we can do to this. Whenever you're doing this, taking a drawing on paper and putting it into the computer, you want to, first of all, before you do anything, you want to lock your background layer, which is usually already locked. And to do this, there's this little lock here. So you want to click that. And usually I try to set up my layers so my line work is always on top. No matter what, line work is always going to be on top. And you can click and drag these frames to help you. Another important rule of thumb, and this is going to be a layer preference, you want to change this layer to multiply. So right here there's a drop down menu, and whenever you create a layer, it's always going to be on normal. So if we want things underneath this layer to be visible, or at least transparent, you are going to want to change this to multiply. So, and this works for a drawing you did digitally too. So you can do a line work drawing in Procreate and still color it the same way. So we have our line work layer set to multiply, and now I want to color this. So before I do anything, I want to create a layer, and I'm going to name it local. And I already started this, but I hadn't gotten too far, so I'm going to have some colors already set in. So I create this local color layer, and I talked about this in another video, but local color is basically your colors that are going to be throughout the drawing, and it's a color that is not tinted. It's basically just without shadows and highlights. So my local color is going to be this dark green, and I already kind of went in and added a little bit of highlights just to get started. So this would be it for me anyway, a local color. But next up, and this is just to get your layers set up. So I always get them set up and ready to go before I start drawing. So I have my background, which is just a gradient. And gradients are cool because you can just click it and drag it across, and you can do that in any direction you want. But I'm not going to do that because I already have it done. And this layer is just going to be my center gradient. So I put a gradient around this center piece. So now I have my background layers, which are just two gradients, my local colors, and then my line work. And right now these colors are going to stay normal for layer preference. So local color is going to stay normal. I also added in highlights and shadows for layers, and that will be for later. So I'm gonna go in and continue to color this in a little bit. And I use keyboard commands like no other. That's all I use. And a keyboard command is basically like Control Z or Control Alt Z or Control Shift Z. So I'm gonna finish coloring this, and I'm just gonna talk to you while I do it. And it might be a little bit messy just for the sake of time, and so I'm not spending too much time going in and fiddling with this. And the best part about layers is that you can always fix them if they're made correctly. So like I'm erasing my colors here around the hand because it's on a different layer, and it's not touching the background because it's on a different layer. So no matter what, whenever you're going to add something to your drawing, you always want to make a new layer. And layering is super important because you can really get some cool effects going, and it's done in a way that's really easy and seamless as opposed to trying to do it traditionally. So once I get this all shaped up and cleaned up and looking good, I usually want to move into the shadows and highlights. And I kind of already shaded this a little bit by using cross-hatching and contour lines. So I kind of indicated the cross contour here around the wrist, and then I also added a little bit of an effect here, and we will adjust that in a minute. And to keep you guys entertained, I'm going to turn on some music. And we're listening to Ross with Friends. It's a techno artist out of LA. And techno is really cool because it was founded in Detroit. So the birthplace of techno is Detroit. And it's really cool because techno has gotten adopted all over the world. It's a huge thing over in Europe, and you know it's highly regarded and appreciated. So for this thing in the middle, I'm just gonna pick a random color, like a complementary color, probably an orange maybe. Or maybe I want to do like a weird pink. Yeah, that's better. That looks more zombie-like. And while I'm working, I'm thinking of adjectives like zombie or flesh or dead or like electric. And all of these adjectives will change how I make my marks. So for example, if I'm drawing something electric, I'll make something super fast, or I'll use a color that has to do with electricity, like yellow. But that's just an example. And like these kinds of marks imply like electricity, fast movement, and stuff like that. So here we are, still getting our local colors in. And keyboard commands are nice because you can quickly move around your tools, but you gotta be careful because a lot of these buttons do multiple things. So if you are doing like command shift but you miss the shift, you'll select a different layer, because control is a shortcut for this tool up here in the corner, and that's the move tool. So if I click on like things around, and basically if I hold control and click, it'll select the layer that I click. And another thing about Photoshop that's really cool is if I really wanted to take the time to get this super crispy and tight to the edge instead of going over like I am, I would use this lasso tool. And if you click and hold on this, you can see the drop down menu for these other tools. So the polygonal lasso tool is basically a tool where you can click and make straight lines to make a selection. And when I'm at the selection, I can color within it, you know. And that's really nice for coloring because I can just go around the edge here and select the whole object, but I'm not gonna do that because it's gonna take a while, and I'm not good at video editing yet, so I'm trying to keep you entertained without making shortcuts. And yeah, because I know a lot of YouTubers like to do that, and it's helpful because people don't have long attention spans, and I mean that's just a result of technology, but that's a whole another topic. So now I have my weird little thing in the middle. I don't know what it is, but it's a weird object and I like it. So now I like where this is at, but I don't really like that color that I just put down. So what I'm gonna do is use my magic wand tool, so this tool over here, and in other programs it might be a selection tool or something like that, but basically using the selection tool or the wand tool, I can click on this color or this color or this color, and it'll make a selection with that color or that value until it stops. So see how it stops right here? And I can do the same thing over here, and over here. So I'm gonna select this and I'm gonna make it a little bit less saturated. So that looks a little bit better. So while I have it selected, I might as well go onto my highlight layer, and usually highlights are going to be, for me, around the edge, and it's going to be a crisp line. So for my highlights, I'm just going to add probably like a value at 25% of the same color. So I'm on my highlight layer, and I'm just going to do quick little marks. Like boom. And since these are sitting on top of this sphere, so this right here is like closest to our point of view, so I'm going to color that bright, because the closer things are, the more contrast there usually is between things next to it. So with this selection, it's really nice because I can just make these quick marks around the outside of this. So Control Z is my keyboard command, or Command Z is going to be my keyboard command for this. And I want to get more color on this, so I'm going to go back to my local color, and I'm going to make this kind of like a see-through. Oh, that's not what I want. So I'm not sure why this is coming up green when I have like a blue color selected. And that's because I have my eraser selected. There. What's up, Sue? Sounds good, man. I'm streaming and recording a video for my students right now. So I'm just letting my Twitch viewers get a little look into my teaching as well. So right now I am coloring this drawing of these zombie hands, and I will be a little bit lazy on attending to my Twitch chat. So here I am painting on my local color because I want to get some variety in here. And there's always a solution to your problem in this program. But yeah, today I actually went on JTV and talked about my mural that I did for them. I did a mural, and it's gonna be their backdrop for their morning show. So that's pretty cool. So still on my local color, and with that selection, I can't draw over here, so I gotta deselect. Control D. And I want this like nasty blood red. Do a little bit of blood over here. Actually, no, I want that on its own layer. So I'm gonna go back and change. Well, I'm gonna undo and make a new layer. I'm gonna name that layer blood. Just gonna make this look zombie-ish. There's a number of different ways we can go about making this look more zombie and fleshy. And that is a way that we can do that is changing the opacity of the tool that we're using. So right now I'm using the brush tool, and up here is where you can change the little tiny preferences of the tools that you're using. So like if I go to the wand tool, I can change the tolerance etc., etc. So I'm going to change the opacity just a little bit so every mark that I make is a little transparent. And if I go over it, it'll start layering. So that's pretty cool. That's how you can get a blending effect really easy. And since I'm using a low opacity, this red that I'm using for the blood is going to kind of blend into the green of the local color. So another way that we could do that is just changing the opacity of the layer itself. But I want these marks to be specific. I just want some like blood over on his fingers. But that's still too much. So I want to bring it back a little bit. Make his hands a little dirty and bloody, and just here and there I want it to be implied. And implying is a good term to keep in mind when you're drawing, because a lot of times you can make marks that, you know, don't necessarily complete the drawing, you know. So I can make a bunch of marks on a figure's head, and you know, you can say it would be hair, but you know, it's not hair, it's just marks that look like hair, and it's implying that hair is there. So like over here on the hand, like I didn't really spend too much time drawing these lines. It was literally just like a quick 1-2, and it got the job done because I'm implying that there's hair on this arm. So now we have our bloody hands, and I want to get that bone color in there, so I'm gonna take this and fix that. I'm still at a low opacity, so this color isn't coming through all the way. So there we are. And something that I'm not very in the habit of doing is zooming in, which is very important because you can zoom in indefinitely, like as far as you want. And that is so helpful in getting these crisp edges and coloring inside the lines. Okay, so we got the bone color in there. And I'm gonna add just a gray blob underneath these hands to imply a drop shadow. But for some reason it's not showing up. And that's because I still have my eraser. And I want it to be soft, so I'm gonna make it a soft brush. What up, Ben? Thanks for the lurk. So that looks nice. I guess we can do something for this thing in the middle, but see, that's too prominent. So I want to take the opacity down on this one because it's, you know, it's not as what's the word? It's all good, Ben. I am currently recording this for my students, so I'm going to be less attentive to the chat. So that shadow looks pretty good in there. I'm going to get some nail colors in here and fix up this local color just a tiny bit. Opacity is still low, so let's get that back up there. like how this is sticking out, so I'm gonna fix that. What color would a zombie's nails be? They'd probably be bloody. So I'm gonna make just a couple like red marks down at the corner of his nails. Nah, that's not what I want. Let's just give him a classic, no. That's okay. That's a little bit better. So another reminder, for those in the stream, I was on JTV this morning. I had an interview with a local broadcaster named Bart Hawley, and he hired me to do a mural, so I was on there talking about that. It was very cool. And for those of you in my class that are going to be watching this on YouTube, I am doing this video live on Twitch. So if you hear me talking to people, that's what I'm talking to. And I'm doing that because I want to get better at talking and teaching on the spot and teaching while I'm working to an audience, because at some point I'm going to be in person teaching you, or teaching these classes rather. And that's pretty cool. I'm excited for that. Alright, so we got the nails in, kind of. I don't like that. Welcome, Nolfus Umbrella. I am currently streaming a video for my class that I teach at Jackson College. So I'm going to be less attentive to chat. This is going to be a more tutorial focused video. So we have things kind of in here. They're not how I want them to be. I mean, the colors are okay, and usually I'll change those up as I go. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep going and help you out just a little bit with seeing my process. So I drew these little ovals here around the hands to kind of imply that there's some sort of force in between the hand and the object. So I am going to make a new layer for this, and I'm going to just call this force field. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it kind of like a blue. And I'm going to use the gradient tool again because I've been on a gradient kick. And I'm going to start from the center and drag out. But that's not what I want. I want this to be a different layer preference. I want it to be kind of like a multiply. And right now it's at a low opacity. So you can change the opacity without changing the opacity of the layer. So right now I'm using, like I said, the gradient tool. And up here at the top are the preferences that you can change for whatever tool that you're using. So that looks okay. It's a little too crisp for what it is. It's a force field. It's like this magnetic thing in between these hands and this object. And the object is like whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's going to get its own gradient as well. And this one's going to be a little bit bigger. I'm gonna move it over a little bit, and I'm moving it by using the arrows on the keyboard without pressing Control or Alt. So if I press Control, I don't even know what that just did, but I didn't want to do that. So, all right, now we got it centered on the object. I'm gonna take another gradient, do it from the center. No, that's not what I want. And that's because I'm on the wrong layer. So now I'm on the force field layer, and let's put this above the line work because we want it to kind of push back what's underneath it. And even that gradient that I just did might be a little bit too high of an opacity. And I'm at 40% opacity on that. So I'm gonna separate this gradient from the hands. And I'm gonna do that by adding a new layer. And I'm gonna title this Center Object Force Field. So now I have my own layer. I can do this, and let's turn down the opacity just a tiny bit. So that looks a little bit better. But you know, the edges are too fine, so I'm gonna keep that selection, and whenever you get rid of a selection, you can press Control Z to get back to it, and it won't change anything that you did. It'll just bring back the selection. So I'm gonna take my eraser tool and change it to a soft eraser. And I'm just gonna go around the edge and try and soften this up a little bit. Whoa. So here we go, and boom. That looks a little bit better, but it's, you know, still too crisp because I took it all the way off. So I'm gonna lower the opacity and just go back around and soften it up a little bit, make it, give it some variety. So that looks pretty good. I still feel like the hand force field is looking a little too. Whoa. All right, yeah. So, dang it. Okay, so I'm gonna erase the center of this again, just to give it some variety and to make it look more transparent. Give it a little bit of a softer edge. And at the end, I'll go in and make, you know, I say that a lot, don't I? You know? So I'm gonna go in at the end and make some marks that are like more fine, like that. I have a really big brush right now, so I'm gonna make a new layer, and then just give it like some sort of flare around the outside to like imply that there's some movement and some electricity going on here. And so that looks pretty fun. So what next? I can always go in and work on the shadows and stuff. I want to get rid of all that real quick. So for shadows get a multiply layer preference because I want these colors to blend a little bit. If I'm making shadows, I'm gonna have a darker value. Like, let's use this dark blue. Let's use this dark blue for our shadows instead of a gray. Gray's kind of boring. I need to get away from that. So we're in our shadow layer and we have our brush at 100% opacity. And our multiply layer means that any mark that we make is going to be see-through and it's going to multiply what's underneath. So it's going to mix what's underneath it. Mix with what's underneath it, rather. So whenever I make a mark, you can kind of see that you can still see the line work, but it's so dark. So I'm going to lighten up that value a little bit. And that's still pretty dark. And that's at about 50%. So now I'm at 25%. And that looks pretty good. But still, I don't know. There we go. So I'm just making these hands more defined. I'm gonna give them some more values to work with here. The more values, the better, in my opinion. Unless you're doing some sort of graphic work. And even those shadows on the inside of the hand are a little bit too big. And I'm thinking about, while I'm doing this, the anatomy of the hand. Thinking about where the joints are, where there's going to be a crease. And also, I'm thinking about where the light source is. So there's always going to be these areas that will have shadows. And, you know, whenever I'm freestyling and just drawing to draw, I don't really think about the light source. I just think about these general areas that get shadow. But with that in mind, if I'm doing shadows, I want to, what's the word? I just want to keep all of that in mind when I'm doing shadows. I lost my train of thought there, I'm sorry. So let's get into this center object and get these values in. And for the most part, that's it. This is the workflow. I've been talking to you for a minute now, almost an hour maybe. And this is how I work. This is a very quick, messy run through of how I work, and I hope you benefit from it, and I hope this helps you with drawing hands, and I hope it helps you with drawing digitally. If you have any more questions, please let me know. We're going into the final week, and it's coming up fast, and I notice a lot of you are still plugging away, getting work in. If there's anything I can do to help, shoot me an email. I've been getting a few here and there. Students telling me they're falling behind, which is completely fine. It's understandable. I know a lot of students work better under pressure and close deadlines. I was one of them. But that doesn't mean slack, you know. You should be thinking about it just as much as you should be thinking about it and planning out in your head more than you draw. So the majority of the time that I spend painting murals is honestly spent looking at it and also studying it. Looking at it close, looking at it from far, looking at it in all different angles and perspectives. So, yeah. And adding values increases contrast, and contrast is the key to making things visible. So if I want something to pop out, I'm going to add a darker value behind something that has a light value. I'm going to put a table, or a floor, rather, to this. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off. For those of you that are in my stream, thank you for coming. I'm gonna go eat some breakfast. I'll be back in just a minute. And to my students, I hope you enjoyed this video just as much as I enjoyed making it for you. I really, really, really like this form of teaching. I think I can get across a lot more this way than I could if I continued using the what's it called? The Big Blue Button platform. I'm just gonna make this a little bit more moody before I sign out. Oh. And there we are. Thanks for listening and watching, and I hope you have a good day.